Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Telling the Show. We're a different kind of podcast. Denise, you want to tell everybody why?
Sure. Because it's you and me, and then we're different. No, so
That's for damn sure.
that's for damn sure. We're different. We're a different kind of podcast because we are working on working, and we're working on our own stuff, and we're all learning together.
Oh yeah, we try to make the learning fun because it's screenwriting is a lonely act of self-abuse. It's funny how I'm describing it in quite those terms. Somebody could misconstrue that a zillion and one different ways, but that's why subtext is a beautiful thing.
Italics.
Right? Or some variation thereof. Okay. And we've been doing a couple of different episodes here where it's been me and Denise kind of shooting the shit. Yeah, because as screenwriters so often do, really, when we're not super busy trying to get our careers going or working on stuff in our careers.
Yes.
But you know what? The impetus for me wanting to write screenplays was the summer movie season and all the fun movies that show up then, which are usually and more often than not described as fast food or junk food cinema. I don't know who really calls it that, but I'm sure plenty of critics do.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, well, it's not everything that opens in a summer is great cinema. I mean, come on. Let's be real about Speed 2, Cruise Control. Come on. And I still maintain that the fact that it got 2 thumbs up from, Siskel and Ebert at the time was just wow. Just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why when somebody's like, well, I didn't go see this because the critics said it was bad. I'm like, why don't you go and make your own opinion?
Fair point. And then there's some where you're so, well, in my case, I'm ashamed to say, I've been so diehard as a fan that I'm defending really what is just truly a bad movie. And in that case, I could say, well, let's see. It was 1997, I believe, and Batman and Robin and My Best Friend's Wedding both opened the same. Guess which one I actually thought was the better movie. But eventually I had to come to terms with that fact. No, My Best Friend's Wedding.
Oh.
God, it was a hell of a lot more entertaining. It had a better script. And Batman and Robin, God, I defended it. I don't know. To this day, I still don't understand how I could be that blind. But, only a child forgives.
Sure. Sure. Okay.
You're like, no, not on that one. Never on that one. Well, I mean, come on, my tastes have matured. I would like to think, especially when it comes to Batman. I mean, as it is, we've got the Batman that opened earlier this year. You and I talked about that at length last time, and I thought it was stronger than a lot of people I think want to give it credit for. Although a lot of friends of mine who are diehard comic book fans who have read Batman comics like 6 Ways to Sunday thought it was a retread and thought it was absolutely awful. And I'm like, you're really just not grateful for it being in cinema, are you? But I mean, to each their own. Every taste is different, right?
So yes.
So, and to that end, we're talking about another blockbuster that was slightly delayed by COVID. They actually finished this movie in 2019, but delayed it because of COVID so that people could see it on the big screen. It's funny. You hear about movies getting delayed, and it's usually not for good reasons, like the studio's going bankrupt or the film's not very good. It was put on the shelf, and they were like, oh, let's directly, push it to video or something because it's just not quite there on the quality. And that's happened tons of times. The biggest ones that come to mind are all the direct-to-video Disney movies I can think of, like Return of Jafar. Come on.
Right.
Things like that.
The other thing that I think I wanted it to be something special for me personally, because remember when that awful sound recording came out of Tom Cruise yelling at everybody?
Oh, on the set of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, or what's now been titled Dead Reckoning Part 1. Yeah. I don't blame him, though. I mean,
I don't blame him either. And, a lot of people don't know the circumstances surrounding that whole thing. And me being a health and safety COVID officer, as a profession right now, like I 100% like I'm like yes, yes. But I don't think a lot of people knew like that's what it was about. Like he basically personally bankrolled all of the bonds and the security and the insurance to get that movie going.
Yeah.
So I think he was ill judged on that one aspect. And I just wanted this to be something special because I felt such a connection to that moment.
Oh, and rightly so. I mean, it's a lot of people wanted to, equate it with Christian Bale when he went off on the set of Terminator Salvation, and he was lambasting the director of photography, who is, unfortunately, the name is escaping me right now, but that gentleman, Shane Hurlbut, that's his name, Shane Hurlbut, who he's a pretty damn good cinematographer and very creative. Just in that situation, it was a case of two professionals and two passions colliding. In this case, it's a justifiable situation for safety. I mean,
Yeah,
it makes you wish that someone like Tom Cruise was producing Alec Baldwin's Rust when that mess happened.
right,
So just, he feels a certain sense of responsibility. I mean, no one I've ever heard, I've never heard Tom Cruise like that, pushed, to that degree. But apparently he's a taskmaster. You don't really, you don't come to his show and mess around at all.
Well, one of our professors, I'm not going to say by name, but actually worked for Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's right.
And he actually spoke to his like just super high work ethic and hyper focus. And I mean, you can't say that he's not successful, even just as a producer.
Yeah.
What was the last Tom Cruise movie that didn't do well?
Well, I mean, there's some that have gone under the radar and some that haven't been marketed very well, but yeah, it's hard to tell that. Like even Edge of Tomorrow, which first of all was not a good title for it. It should have gone by the title that was really its tagline and has since been retconned that way. Live, Die, Repeat, I think they call it now.
Yes, yeah.
That was a damn good movie.
It was.
And it was very entertaining. And I'm sitting here wondering why it's not cleaning up that summer at the box office, and especially with a name like Tom Cruise. And some of that, I think, is just still holdovers. A lot of there was a certain period, I think, when he wasn't really getting the best PR about himself.
Right.
So,
right. And I mean, I feel like as far as personal stories aside, we could talk about Johnny Depp. We could talk about Robert Downey Jr. I mean,
Amber Heard.
Yeah. Everybody has the opportunity to reinvent themselves, repent if they need to. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a one and done industry. It's a let's see what you're going to do now industry. And I think one of the best stories, like slightly better than Tom Cruise comeback story, was Robert Downey Jr. He went away. He did, he repaired himself. He worked on himself, and then he came back better. I think Tom Cruise did the same thing, but just slightly different. Yeah.
Yeah, varying degrees on that, especially since Cruise hasn't been, to your point earlier, I don't think he's ever been at a truly, truly low point,
right?
Professionally speaking, and. Hollywood loves an underdog, and they love a comeback story. So that's why you still keep wondering when Mel Gibson's going to have his big comeback. Although he's had little radical fits in the stars, but there's some people who just will never forgive him.
I am one. I am one.
Exactly.
There are so many movies that I want to see. I can't do it because he's in it. And I can't patronize that mindset.
And
can't do it.
And justifiably so. I have a friend who refuses to see movies with Julia Roberts in it. He still hasn't explained why, but that's.
Oh, what did she do? Now I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out, and he still hasn't said. So, and honestly, again, at a certain point, it's just the why never has a satisfying enough explanation for someone else, but for him,
Right. It's
it,
his thing. Yeah.
yeah, that's his call. But we're not, and it's funny, we're talking about comeback tales. It's funny how a sequel, I don't know what the statute of limitations for sequels is anymore.
36 years.
Considering we're talking about Top Gun Maverick in this particular session, we're talking about all the periphery around this. I know we're going to dissect the writing here in a minute, but it's so hard to get around the fact that 36 years ago, and they address it in the script, they address the gap in time. And at least and I think the last one I thought, okay, really, they're going to have this long a stretch between movies, was the Indiana Jones movies, going from the Last Crusade to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and of course, less said the better about that. And I'm really hoping for this fifth one. I mean, I don't know. I mean, being a longtime fan of that franchise, I'll give it a fair shot. But it begs the question: are we going back to the well too many times? Absolutely. But if you're gonna do it at least with a sense of addressing all those things and having something specific come through that achieves beyond the story, at least in the execution. So, what do you? Okay. First of all, have you seen Top Gun Maverick? I know I have. Have you?
Yes, I have.
And okay, so putting aside the writing for just a second, tell me how you're feeling about it.
I thought the cinematography was absolutely stunning. There are so many shots that I loved. I thought everything on the aircraft carrier was really cool. I mean, but that was just me being like, a jet nerd. Yeah, I mean, like all the workings of the aircraft carrier, I thought were really cool. I thought it was really cool to see the black SR. I think it was an SR-71. Probably not. I don't know those.
The Dark Star. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever they patterned it after, because sadly we haven't seen the SR-71 in years because it's been decommissioned. But
right, but it sort of looked like that, so I'm not sure. So that was kind of cool. I thought it brought up a really, really interesting point that are we going to be the old military? Or are we going to be a new military? What does military mean? I think it brought up, there was a lot of underlying questions that I think it brought up that I don't think people actually thought about, because it was like vroom, vroom, jet, boom, boom, but script-wise, I have problems. I have problems with this story.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, bring it on. Let's hear what those problems are.
First, the timeline is all scurry for me. Goose's kid would have been late 30s, early 40s in the timeline of this movie, even in 2020, when I think this film was supposed to be set. And that's way too old for a fighter pilot. He would not be allowed to fly in a jet. So unfortunately, I don't get it. I didn't get the whole timeline. I thought the characters were all extremely flat. I didn't care about any of them. Except for Iceman, which I thought was a really charming and sweet, endearing way to keep him in the movie without having him talk. That was probably my favorite scene.
Yeah.
And just like all the other pilot personalities were not as vibrant as they were in the first one. They didn't have anything to call their own. There was,
That was a big part of it for me too. I felt like it had a lot less swagger in the humor than the first one.
Yep.
But I chalked that up to two things. One, I do agree that the characters were flat. Like, I mean, except for Rooster, you have at least some character arc with him. Not a huge one, but it's in support of Maverick more than anything else, right? Which it's, that makes sense. It's, everything is in some way or one way or another about the title character, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it, all totally completely work. Because it also, the biggest problem with a movie like this, even a script like this, is that it's dependent upon a great deal. I mean, if you didn't see the first movie and saw this one, I don't have that experience, so I don't know what. I mean, there's other people who have never seen the first one and saw this and were like rooting and stuff like that.
Right.
And there's problems with the first movie too, in terms of certain things that they do. Like, it's a threadbare plot that really is just about a coming of age tale, but it's also a simple story, told effectively across, an hour and 45 minutes or so, with great cinematography and some, but it's not necessarily the most realistic rationale. But it's coming of age tale. And this one, it's still about Maverick and finding out what his identity is now in this phase of his career and his life, and especially juxtaposed against that Iceman scene. That really, I think that's what galvanized the film. But is it enough of a film? Because up until that point, it's basically trying to almost retread the previous movie in a way, one way or another.
Yeah, it was complete retelling of the first one. Yeah, I didn't know what I expected the story to be. I pretty much saw it in the trailer. He's out and they pull him back in. All right, okay, I got it.
Pretty standard for a sequel, and a summer movie all in one, really, if you think about it,
But if you take a step back from the story and the characters, I still thought it was fun. It was a summer fun movie, Here's a question for you. So Penny was Penny Benjamin from the first movie, which I don't think a lot of people caught that. I was like, oh my God, that's Penny Benjamin. Do you think that kid was Maverick's?
No. As a matter of fact, it was pretty clear in the plot that because the kid speaks to how her dad had run off with her new, I guess, stepmom, but she references it at one of the earliest interactions that teenage girl has with Maverick. Now, to the point about not catching that it was Penny Benjamin, I mean, first of all, the biggest secret in the world was who Jennifer Connelly was going to play, or at least one of the big secrets that they didn't want to blow. And at one point on, I think IMDb, somebody had credited her as Carol Bradshaw, which was Meg Ryan's character, basically Rooster's mom. Wouldn't that have been freaking awkward on so many levels if that had been the case? So to me, it was really brilliant that they harkened back to the movie in that way, because that's just a small thing. And how could you not catch that? That's one of the most quotable lines from the first movie. It's like, if we're channeling my inner James Tolkien there, it's like, with a history of 4 high-speed passes over high-speed passes over 4 aircraft carriers and 1 admiral's daughter. Penny Benjamin? And he's like, Maverick's trying to shake it off. So Penny Benjamin exists already in that first movie, but it's like, I get in one way that you blink and you miss that line, but if you remember the dressing down that CO gives Maverick, it's right there. But going back to your point about how there's not enough character depth in the movie, what it would have been great, there's this great sense of conflict between Maverick and Rooster, but wouldn't it have been great if they addressed that earlier on through the course of the second act, and then somehow in the second act we see some sort of bond develop between them? It would have made everything that happens in that third act just that much more of a twist and keep us a little more on the edge of our seat. To enjoy that third act and see, are they going to make it? Or are they not? It's from the beginning, this tension they try to build through the whole story of like, who's not going to make it back?
Right.
you're
Right.
expecting that. The only real death you get in the movie, I'm not going to say because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, who hasn't seen it yet. But it's not somebody if you do come to care about any of the characters along the way of the movie, other than Maverick, you're not going to come out of it with the same shock that you do with Goose in the first movie.
Right. And I do like that change. There's that, what I would call like the apex of the roller coaster right before the third act. Well, maybe
Yeah,
it's in the third, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I don't know how else to describe it, but it's something that has to do with Goose
right.
and Rooster, which is like just the stupidest name ever. But anyways,
Yeah, there's two O's in Rooster, boys.
yeah.
See what I did there?
Jesus. Yeah, I saw what you did there. But if you look at these writers, there's 3 credited writers for this script.
There's 5, really.
I only had 3 on my list, but Aaron Kruger, Christopher McQuarrie.
Oh yeah, who probably cleaned it up.
Yeah, and Eric Singer.
Yeah, Eric Warren Singer. Yeah, but there was Peter Craig and Justin Marks. It started with them. I mean, as far as the initial story for this movie, and then of course it goes back to Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr., who wrote the screenplay for the first one based on an article which I don't know if you read about how right now I think I don't know where it's landed, but there was a lawsuit from the estate of the author of the original article off of which Top Gun was based. There's this persistent idea, I guess, if you believe headlines and social media, that they weren't sufficiently compensated or referenced or credited in any way for the second movie. So I don't know. I mean, I would like to think that they probably were in some way, shape, or form, and in a way, there's one person that wasn't credited for Top Gun that really should have been, considering if you when you find out that he wrote the greatest line from the first movie. You're familiar with the line that everybody quotes from Top Gun: "I feel the need for speed," right? Well, that was an actual line that came out of uncredited drafts written by the late, great Warren Scarron, who is most known for drafts of screenplays for Beetlejuice, the 1989 Batman, and some uncredited work on some other films here and there, right? And interestingly enough, that line came from him. There's a great book about Warren Scarron's time in Hollywood and how he got to be a part of doing last-minute drafts to clean up a few things on that script. And yet there were minor things, I suppose, because obviously the WGA gave the credit to Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr.
Yeah.
But got to give some credit to that because that's a great line from the movie. It's one of the most quotable lines from the movie. And Warren Scarron, I think his work is probably the most underrated when it comes to these movies that we love so much, especially if you're looking at something like Beetlejuice.
Well, I mean, there's a process. I mean, we should probably talk about the process.
Sure.
There's a process to all these people being added on or replacing other writers. Nowadays, I think it's more rare for the person who actually wrote the initial script to be the last person that touches it.
Yeah, to get credited at all. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Think about that when you're putting your scripts out there.
Well, we all know that all of us are going to get rewritten after some way or another, and unless we got a good lawyer or got some great, are willing to spend great time with the, WGA and who fights for this kind of thing, those are the big challenges. But to your point, it's to the point where people are trying to develop writers' rooms for major franchises. Paramount did it with with the Transformers franchise, and that's how you get you get one writer in the room is they all throw out their ideas, and then they assign whatever idea, whoever pitches it, okay, you go write that, and we'll have these all these scripts developed at once, and whomever had the best pitches, right? That's how you get movies like Bumblebee. So, and in this case, I don't know that it was a writer's room, but they spent years, and Tom Cruise wasn't going to make this movie unless it was right. And I guess it finally got right with some, drafts and, polishing by Christopher McQuarrie, because they're joined Tom Cruise and he are joined at the hip for the Mission Impossible movies, right?
Yes, and there's actually an untitled SpaceX project with Tom Cruise.
Oh, I know about that one. Doug Liman is directing that one, and basically Tom Cruise is going into space. Like they're going to actually film
in space,
leveraging Elon Musk's rocket. And I'm like, okay, Cruise is like 59, right?
Yep.
And by the time that his the second of the Dead Reckoning Mission Impossible movies opens, and by the time he makes this movie, he's in space, and it gets released. He's going to be at retirement age. I doubt he's going to retire, but that's going to be a feather in the cap. If you're going to go out on top, I mean, like, dude, Tom, if you're making a movie in space, you're doing something James Cameron was trying to do. Literally, yeah, exactly. You're going to go out on top. You're going to go out on top for sure, right? So, God bless him, because I mean, I'd love to have done that.
Here's what I was bringing up with these three writers, right? So if you look at Christopher McQuarrie, right? He's Mission Impossible. He's The Mummy. He's Edge of Tomorrow. He's Jack Reacher. I think if you look at each of these writers, you can pinpoint what they brought to the revision of the script, to their revision. Like, so I think actually Chris was probably involved in this earlier in the process and made it I think he's the one that solidified Maverick's story arc, whatever that was, just because that's what he does well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. He also had some great lines in there, here and there. I mean, there's not a lot of quotable stuff in there, but the more fantastical stuff, like the test pilot stuff with going Mach 10,
right?
And then the really the third act suspension of disbelief really being stretched at the end. I think that's Aaron Kruger, because a lot of the movies that he's written have sort of that fantastical element, because if you look at the Transformers movies, that's all that's about.
Yeah, and that's what. Right. And most of those, if you look at Transformer movies as sequels, they do have a through line, but they are all unique stories in their own right. And he's also got, I also was going to bring up Aaron, because some of his movies are on the darker side, like all the Ring movies, Brothers Grimm, all that kind of stuff. So I think that darkness, I don't want to say like the Val Kilmer darkness, but the darkness that Maverick experiences in like, I will die to save these people because that's what I should be doing. I think that's like something that he might have contributed.
And honestly, that's one of those things that shows greater maturity about Maverick in this movie, is that he's willing to make a sacrifice of some kind, so that somebody else has it better. That's because and that to me is a great thing, because it's an echo of what he was like with Goose, because he was extremely selfish in the first movie, and he's, he just always wants to be on the edge, always wants to, be out there at Mach 2 with his hair on fire, now Mach 10 once you've seen the movie and everything, but or this new one anyway. But yeah, I thought that there were parts of the Maverick character that at least they'd shown some growth over the years. They'd showed some change for him and what he's trying to be, or what he still wants to be. So, and I think you're right. I think Aaron Kruger did put that in. I mean, because and he wrote one of my few favorite Ben Affleck movies, Reindeer Games, because that's just
such a good movie.
just a wild ass
Yeah.
action movie. It's a rarity these days, sadly. So,
And then if you look at Eric Singer, I think he brought in, I'm not going to say pop culture, but I think he made that story that everybody else had decided on, he made it relevant to an audience for today. Because he's really, I think that's what he's good, is making these stories that seem inaccessible accessible.
I would agree, and he writes grounded screenplays.
Yeah.
Like if you look at American Hustle,
Hustle, yeah,
The International, which I think is, it's not a great movie, but it's a very interesting taut thriller.
But he's definitely got a unique voice.
Yes.
So. Yeah. But yeah, that's the only reason I was bringing those up, because I feel like we're always taught to hone your voice. That voice is going to be you. And I think with these writers specifically, you can actually see from their body of work probably what they contributed to this one story. And I think that's kind of cool.
It is. And at the same time, when you're writing something like this, that's an interesting question for us as screenwriters coming into this is, they want you to come in and write something because of your unique voice or how you handled something on a previous project. That's usually what it is. Your voice is actually slave to the central needs of the project when you have a big sequel like this, because it's not about your voice at that point. It's actually about getting the story out there. Because the voice is really Tom Cruise's more often than not, because this is really his show. I mean, the first movie was very much your Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer. That was the high octane fuel to get it from where it started in 82 to 84, now in 86 with Top Gun, to what it's now known historically as. Whereas, Bruckheimer's name is on this, but this is all Tom Cruise trying to bring in and execute a film. So it's more of a filmmaking show and the kind of hard work on getting it done than it is about any specific screenwriting voice, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And I don't think it needs to be. This was definitely a hard story to get right, because it would be like rebuilding the Statue of Liberty. Everybody's going to have an opinion of what it should look like.
Yeah.
But the only person that's going to have the true vision is the one that's building it.
Right. And yet it really begs the question, do we need to rebuild? I mean, here you've heard the oldest Hollywood joke of like, how many Hollywood directors does it take to screw in a light bulb? Does it have to be a light bulb? But now I'm kind of flipping that question on its head. Like, does it have to be the same thing we've seen before? Does it have to be another reboot? Does it have to be a sequel? Given the certain, world we live in terms of business, kind of, sadly. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's always going to be like that. I don't, at a certain point, I think right now, Top Gun Maverick is the movie that our movie theaters need. Definitely. Could we get better in terms of, from the consumer end? Absolutely. And, these writers involved are writing other things that are probably going to be, that are going to get butts in seats. I'm going to go see the next Mission Impossible movie. I mean, I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, but I am a fan of the movies he makes, and I'm entertained by them. So I'm going to go. Plus, Chris McQuarrie, I actually, about a year ago, there was a Austin Film Festival had a panel, a series of panels in the summer where you could, like, for a small amount of money, attend virtually. And he was on one of them. And man, he had the best background, and I kind of wish I'd had one like this, because it would have given me a thicker skin with notes, and probably given me a greater sense of pushing for deeper, working harder on the script, and in terms of self-judgment of when the story's not working quite right. He used to work at a movie theater and I forget where, but it was one of those movie theaters where you got a certain kind of audience that it's like second run, they're throwing popcorn at the screen, talking back at the screen, and calling bullshit on a plot point or character moment that doesn't work, right? Everyone. And that's, seeing the audience reaction, talk about the perfect test group to see. It's after the fact, after a film is released, but that's perfect to see a story when it's not working and how people react to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And made him, it certainly probably made him a stronger writer. But we're also talking about the guy that won the Academy Award for The Usual Suspects. So the guy's got the nonlinear thing down already, for one. If you can do nonlinear well, the theory goes you might just be able to write a decent story otherwise. I mean, just look at Chris Nolan. Just as another counterexample.
Sure.
But yeah, okay, so there's a lot of folly. I mean, we know Top Gun Maverick is successful. It's like made over 430 million here domestically, and then worldwide total is like over 810 million, I think, or more. The last numbers that I saw. So, okay, so regardless of what we think of how it was written, apparently it was successful, but that's not to say that the idea has not become the institution. And here's why I'm saying that. You sent me a great link before we went live. And I got to bring this on screen because this is great. You got to tell me how you found this, because this is funny as hell.
I literally Googled Top Gun Maverick script, and that was the first listing under Google.
Right. You were trying to find the actual screenplay, though, right?
Yeah, I wanted to find the actual screenplay.
Oh, my. So this is the site of G. Scott Huggins. Are you familiar with his work otherwise?
No, but I started to read some of his other posts, and they are all this funny. So.
Okay, so seriously, got to be some kind of humorist, but we got to post the link for our listeners to check out, because this is wow. I mean, there are things in here, and this was you I don't know if you'll be able to see on screen here, folks, but this was posted on January 9th, 2020. It's literally 2 years before this would actually end up getting released, right?
Yep.
And this guy, I mean, first of all, it's funny as hell, but he must have been like clairvoyant, because there are things in here. I'm like, how did you know? I mean, some of that, yeah, you could get from the trailer, but some of this you couldn't get unless you saw the movie, right?
Right.
To really make fun of it. I mean, I got to read some of this here right now, because this is the one that I thought was really kind of this actually, to me, I thought was clairvoyant as hell. Like, somehow he kind of knew. And it's funny how he casts instead of he calls out Goose's kid, which you kind of knew from the trailer, right?
Right.
He casts Ryan Gosling in that.
Yes.
Which I think is funny as hell, because of course Gosling's got this very stoic nature in general, and I don't know that. So that makes me wonder how he's going to do as Ken in that Barbie movie that's coming soon.
Yeah, I think he looks. It looks so weird, but I don't know.
I just, first of all, I mean, it's proof that they'll make a movie out of anything. I can't wait for the. See, I still think Operation as a movie could be cool if it were like either a medical thriller or a David Cronenberg body horror thriller.
Oh man!
So, but no one would ever play the game again. You would not be able to sell Operation games after that. So, but I want to read aloud this scene 4 here. Scene 4, classroom. And this isn't really necessarily following true screenwriting structure. So for you guys that are purists for how things are supposed to be written on page, don't look for that here. Just back that down, relax, have a glass of your favorite beverage, alcoholic or non, and just roll with it. Scene 4, classroom. Goose's kid, aka Ryan Gosling. So is that extremely unsafe flying that you kicked our asses with? How you got my dad killed? And I don't do a good Tom Cruise impression or a good Ryan Gosling impression, so you'll just have to roll with that, I suppose. But Maverick answers, as the only person in the film who didn't see this coming, trails off there. I want to insert that audio of him yelling at the crew right at that moment. No.
Oh my gosh.
And then
That'd be
after class, and I love how this is written, hot girl pilot.
Yep.
And I'm seeing Monica Barbaro, who I think
Yep.
holds her own pretty well in this movie, and I
Yeah.
mean this, with what she's given to do in the film. And honestly, you hear about how we're losing, the last of our big great movie stars. First of all, Miles Teller I think kicked ass in this movie. It just shows musical prowess and pretty decent capability. And for all for those people who are interested, he does have a washboard stomach apparently. For what that's worth. But Monica Barbaro, I mean, she's the only female pilot in the whole movie. So, and one of two females in the film. That's kind of the standard ratio for Top Gun. And there's plenty of female military officers and service women. It's still kind of topsy-turvy on the gender side, I think. But I'm not going to bring in the gender politics angle necessarily, because I'm rambling now and being very tangential. Let me get back to script. Hot girl pilot. That wasn't fair for him to say that. Maverick, of course, responds with, "It wasn't fair that I killed his dad either." Actually, I should see. Let me sound more grizzled. It wasn't fair that I killed his dad either. Hot girl pilot says, "Sure it was. You're Tom Cruise, and his dad was Anthony Daniels." Yeah, that doesn't make it right. Anthony Edwards. Yeah, whatever. Want a motorcycle ride? I thought you'd get your ass. Wow. And honestly, some of this you could tell it was pulled from the trailer a little bit, but
yeah.
But as soon as I'm reading this, I'm thinking back to the movie where, in the scenes with Monica Barbaro, and I'm probably butchering her last name. I hope I'm not, but she's got all these, scenes where she just absolutely exudes confidence. She's like, we're Top Gun. Who the hell's going to teach us?
Right.
That sort of thing. And
scroll all the way down to the last fight scene, because I think that sums it up.
Oh, right. Hang on. The sky.
Yeah,
Scene 8,
right
the sky. Maverick's plane. Zoom. Ryan Gosling's plane. Zoom. Maverick's plane. Zoom. Hot girl pilot's plane. Zoom. And yeah, that considering that no one knows what's really in the third act unless you've seen the movie, this is pretty accurate. Hot girl pilot's plane. Zoom. Nameless enemy planes explode. Rock music soundtrack goes to 11. Credits.
Okay. So funny.
I'm going to give it up to G. Scott Huggins for just really being, wow, very prophetic and, very, very, very much the calm voice of humor in the storm. So check this out at gscotthuggins.com. I'm giving him an endorsement shout out for that, just on that basis alone. Just saying. Thank you for sending that to me.
Yeah, I figured it would make you laugh.
Oh, man. Do you remember... when we were in the MFA program that we both graduated from, we had this one article talking about how our values inform our screenplays.
I don't recall.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know it's been a minute for both of us, but I keep thinking back to that because it was talking about like somehow if you're, because a lot of movies are coming from a place of like, in general, a certain set of morals, sometimes exposing a bad set of morals, but all the time it's like you're really like some of your voice comes from your values, right? We were speaking about voice earlier,
yes.
Things that the things that you want to come away from, Steve Martin in the movie Grand Canyon, written and directed by Lawrence Kasdan, said all of life's secrets are in the movies, right? That's because we're trying to get to some, hopefully not in a heavy-handed way, trying to get at you some truths and stuff like that. But it's funny how everybody talks about Top Gun in retrospect being a product of the Reagan era politics.
I read a lot about that, and I guess, I don't know. I never saw it like that.
See, and I'm surprised I have any objectivity when it comes to Top Gun, because when it has a special place in my heart, because when it broke, and became the big phenomenon it was, I lived on a military base in Hawaii. My dad was in the Air Force, and he was stationed at Hickam Air Force Base in Honolulu, and living on that Air Force Base and having everybody see that movie and see how great the action was. And all these kids I knew either wanted to be aeronautical engineers or naval aviators, or they wanted to be Tom Cruise. Me, I wanted to be a filmmaker. If anything, my dad brought that movie home on VHS hi-fi. Yes, I said VHS tape. With a Bose 4-to-1 speaker system. And as soon as those afterburners cranked up and it goes right into Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone, I'm like, dude, the experience of it, seeing that film, it was further re-cementing my desire to make movies, because there was some kick-ass stuff going on in that movie from a lot of reasons. Not necessarily all of it around the script, but other elements too, right? So that leaves me with very little objectivity, if we're talking about the writing of a film. I suppose I probably should have left that at the top of this episode, but I never felt, I guess because I was a kid in the 80s, and like I said, only a child forgives, I never felt the political side of it at all with the Reagan era stuff. Your villains were, there was red stars on the planes, so they're called Russian MiGs, right?
Right.
And these days, there were a lot of articles talking about how it has to be Iranian, because of, what their final mission's all about in Top Gun Maverick. And okay, here's the wildest thing I read recently is there was somebody who, and this is, to my knowledge, I don't know if he's a critic or not, just goes by the name of Brett, no last name. Certainly the anonymity of the internet is applicable here, but he gave Top Gun Maverick a 1.5-star review. Like, absolutely was like angry in his critique of the film. Now, no film is perfect, but he's coming from a place, and there's a lot of people I've met that are like this, that are against movies like Top Gun or Independence Day, where people have to rally together for some greater cause, because they look at it as jingoistic rather than patriotic or anything like that, right? So, like you, I'm finding like very little to, think of that. I mean, if jingoism is just, patriotism that's blind for no reason. To me, I look at Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, and being the son of a military officer, it's tough, because to me there's a reality to the fact that, you're a soldier sent to do a mission, to complete a mission or to go to war. It's, you follow orders, and there's a reality that you may not come back from it. And that, to me, I think, isn't about jingoism. You're not doing it for any patriotic reasons. Some of it you do it because it's in your blood, like the character of Maverick. But I just don't think that there was any subversive values in it, right?
No, I don't think so at all. And I don't know who you're talking about, so I'm not gonna make any claims to what they have personally experienced in life. But I was watching something with Trevor Noah this morning, and he was talking about the totally unrelated, the whole thing with Lizzo and her song lyrics. And she came out and apologized and then changed the lyrics. But there are still people hating on her. And I think we live in a society now where everybody is anonymous and feel they can say whatever they want. But as soon as you turn the table and say, like, can you explain this to me? Why do you feel this way? All of a sudden, you can't do that. You know what I mean? So I feel like we need to lose the anonymity of posts on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And people, it's craziness. It's crazy.
See, these cancel culture people out there, I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to call them out. That's kind of a blanket statement too. So I have to really be careful about that, because everyone's got a right to their opinion. Doesn't mean that their opinion is necessarily correct. I mean, we've grown up with the adage that, people are like, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one.
Everybody's got one. Yeah.
That kind of thing. But I'll tell you something, people who want to make anonymous posts, first of all, if you're going to take the time to critique something, give it its due, do it, talk about what, there's what the film promises by its trailer. Did it make you feel something or did it not? The job of a critic is to, in the most would be journalist. Well, I say would be journalistic, but they are journalists. But at the same time, there's supposed to be some sense of journalism a part of it. That's why I say would be journalism. But um, the idea is to, in some sort of journalistic turn of phrase that is worth reading, give an opinion about a movie. That doesn't necessarily mean, like to your earlier point, you know, that it has to make up your mind. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna put it out there, take a cue from us screenwriters who want to get credit for what we write. Put
Mm-hmm.
your name out there
Mm-hmm.
because that means you stood by the work you did. So I think this goes into the subject a little bit of, you know, not necessarily artistic credibility or, being fairly compensated or just making sure that your name is the guy that's on the screen is, some sense of achievement. But
Mm-hmm.
it's more about the fact that you were willing to stand by the fact that when you say written by on that front
Mm-hmm.
page, that you stand by the work you did, that
Mm-hmm.
there's the effort, putting your voice out there, everything, standing by, you believe in this thing that you've written, that you're trying to get out to the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anonymity cheats that.
Absolutely. I think we've come to such a hateful world where we immediately go from 1 to 100, and it's from kindness or acceptability. All of a sudden, we're in a rage of hate. And hate is such a strong word. And I think until we start getting past that, we're not going to see new stories. We're not going to see, creative new retellings of stories. It's going to be the same stuff over and over and over again because that's the only thing that is mass accepted.
Right. And at the same time, it's like, stand by your words, I mean, but watch them, watch what your words are, be careful. That's one of those things people can learn from screenwriters, because every word, you put down, you have to think of it and write it in a specific way. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for people to read or understand. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, it goes back to a quote about watch your words because your words become your actions, and watch your actions because they become your deeds. So, and I'm paraphrasing that quote. But there's some benefits, I think, to learning from that. I guess all the answers to life really are in the movies. So, or someone would believe, but and you're right. I wish we had a less hateful world, but I think it's come down to, you know, are we really so quick to believe a headline, or are we going to really think this through? I mean, there's plenty of smart people that are just dumping into that, but that gives us an opportunity to write about such things. I mean, if you think about it, have you ever seen Planet of the Apes, the 1968 one?
Of course, of course.
Okay. The brilliant thing about that movie is, as a story archetype, the shoe being on the other foot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at everything about that movie, you got Charlton Heston, the most, um, to use terms from our current vernacular, the Caucasian cisgender heterosexual male, certainly having the swagger of the late 60s,
Right.
speaking with all those lines that you just know were written by Rod Serling. Half of his dialogue, I think, was. And all of a sudden, he's thrust in this world where he's not the dominant person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not laid on as thick to anyone watching it now, but back in 68, like right at that nexus year right before the 70s, when it's in the middle of the Vietnam War, it's in the middle of the civil rights issues that were going on in the country at the time. So it's not I guess to some it might have been laid on thick that you had someone in ape makeup with dark skinned ape makeup is like hosing Charlton Heston down in a cage with a high powered fire hose. And I mean, I'm sorry, but that's a certain, harkening back to the reality of the world with which that movie was written, to
Mm-hmm.
make people think a little bit. Okay, if the shoe were on the other foot, how would you deal with it? and to get more thought provoking around that. Now, is that going to sell box office tickets and get like Top Gun Maverick numbers and damn near a billion? I guess it's just going to depend on the rest of the elements,
Hmm.
but those are the kind of stories that I think maybe we need to start, talking about. I mean, from our perspective, we had the benefit of education, so that we can go see see a movie like Das Boot, where the brilliance of it is, you're cheering on this Nazi German submarine boat crew, and yet you just know, because of we know history and the way that war ended, things aren't going to end well for these guys.
Right.
So
Or
it's funny
for
how
a more less historical referenced example of that, you cheer for the T-Rex in Jurassic
Mm,
World. You know what I
right,
mean? In all the
right,
Jurassic movies, you're always cheering for the T-Rex. Why? Right?
right. And honestly, that's the interesting twist, because usually you fear that thing, where
Exactly.
but the idea is, and I think it's not such a so subtle a nod to Godzilla, where Godzilla is always the natural equalizer, with the exception of the 1998 movie, which is a hot mess, but that's a whole other story.
I still
Um,
liked it.
you liked it? Oh my god, I walked out of that thing so disappointed. And it's like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. I just came out of there with this, like, that's the first time I experienced the real meh. If we're gonna have
Well,
a meh moment, that's one
Godzilla
of them.
is my favorite monster of all
Ah, yeah,
time.
and deserves a better movie.
Um, mm, I think the last ones were my least favorite.
Really? Like, well, King of the Monsters, I get it, because there's some plot points that just didn't connect.
Yeah.
Even though there's other things about it that I liked a lot. Now, the predecessor of that one, the first Godzilla, that was directed by Gareth Edwards, um, there's things about that one that I liked a lot,
There
because
were elements that I liked. I liked the way that he looked. It was going back to the original rubber suit kind of styling. And that's, to me, what Godzilla looks like. So I was glad they went back, and less of the, neck on steroids from the Matthew Broderick version. But no,
right,
I'm also a New Yorker. So, it was pretty cool
Godzilla.
to see Godzilla in New York.
Right. I mean, well, in general, I mean, the first movie was the brilliance of the first movie, whether it's the Raymond Burr inserted, version, or yeah, why is Perry Mason facing off against a lizard? Um, and that's showing some severe cultural irrelevance right there. But the original movie is so brilliant, because it's really an echo of um it's an echo of Hiroshima. Actually, it's very
Yeah.
much that allegory of it, and it's really about how the people deal with the damage that Godzilla leaves behind, and the devastation, the disaster of it. It really is. Godzilla is one of the first unique and best disaster movies.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that Roland Emmerich would have gotten the chance to make it on in 1998, coming off of Independence Day, right? Because Independence Day, with all its intergalactic, battles, is still a disaster movie. And in the case of like the original Godzilla, what I liked about Gareth Edwards' one, all those, flash forward to his version, what I loved about it was the emotional impact, and it zeroed in on these specific characters and what they were dealing with. Although you really didn't get a lot of character depth with Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen's characters. You just know that you wanted to see them get back together, as their husband
Yeah.
and wife and all that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, what I liked about it is that it can, a lot of people hated, we're not seeing Godzilla enough. And I'm like, if you watch the original movie, it wasn't about the monster. The later
No, it was.
movies had more fun with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about Godzilla, it was kind of like Hitchcockian, where like you heard about him, but when he was there, he was always bigger than life, and it wasn't until that he was actually on the screen that it was a Godzilla movie. But it was always about the people. It was always about the town, or um, you know, something associated with whatever Godzilla was near. But it was never about Godzilla.
Right. It's it was always about either the devastation he wreaked, and why was he doing it? Well, he was trying to correct the balance of nature some way, shape or form. It was that way with the first one, from way back when, to the newer ones. And the King of Monsters, God bless them for trying to blend. Legendary Pictures was really trying to build a franchise and everything like that, with that whole Monarch thing.
Yeah, I did like Godzilla versus King Kong. Or
Yeah,
Kong. It just not for story or anything. I just thought it was fun. I thought the effects were cool. Yeah,
certainly it had a better, plot than King of the Monsters did.
but we talked about that because that's the one where Godzilla scratches his butt, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
You're like, oh,
yeah.
for God's sake. It's like, come on,
Yep.
how I mean, you can be juvenile, but really low hanging fruit like that? Come on.
Well, I mean, he is Godzilla. Sometimes the fruit hangs low.
Wow. I just want everyone to know for the record that it was not me that went to the lowest common denominator of humor on that one. That was brilliant.
Thank you. See, there were 3 out of 5 is my ratio.
There you go. There you go. Oh man. But I will say, Legendary's Pictures had a great opportunity with a franchise, but they botched it. And I'll tell you how. You had Godzilla, produced by Legendary Pictures, and near to that time they had Pacific Rim, which was all about basically, rock'em sock'em robots versus Godzilla, basically, right? And I love Pacific Rim. I thought it was.
I liked the first one.
The first one's good. The second one,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, they tried. Nothing wrong with a try. I will say some of the action direction on it was pretty solid, but story wise, moving on. Honestly, I thought, okay, the simple, easy thing for them to do, Godzilla, then you have Pacific Rim, just insert Godzilla and Pacific Rim together. That's your trilogy. You're done. You're good. They could have just had one more movie blending these two franchises together, and that could have spawned something further if they wanted to, but it really would have solidified in one shot what they ended up making 3 or 4 more movies just to try to do. But I still think they're, especially Godzilla versus Kong, because it was just plain fun.
Yeah.
That was my problem with the 1998 Godzilla. It was absolutely no fun. It was just like they were really trying. The Madison Square Garden scenes, I thought, okay, now we're channeling Aliens and Jurassic Park at the same time, right?
I loved the French guys. That's what made it fun for me. And Hank Azaria. I mean, there's no one like Hank Azaria. So,
my thing about that movie is I wish he had been the central character, like the hero of the story, because I liked his character. His character was at least a hell of a lot more interesting than the news reporter that he was working for, or Matthew Broderick's character. Just none of those guys really were interesting at all. But if you had gotten Hank Azaria, if the script had been rewritten around him, and in some way, and given some character depth, having him and Jean Reno interact together, first of all, you would have spent less money getting an actor like Matthew Broderick, for one. 2, you could have had a tighter story.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole rewrite, though. But and also those names weren't names. I mean, they're names now, but those names weren't like popular U.S. celebrity names. Matthew Broderick was, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was the only name that anyone, I think, can remember from it. And even then, I think these days, no one thinks about the fact that he was in a Godzilla movie now.
Okay.
I mean, people remember him for Ferris Bueller. Come on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to be remembered for something, that or The Producers, perfect. You're good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he'd like to forget Godzilla.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know him, so I've only met him a couple of times. I don't know. I've never asked him about Godzilla.
Well, please don't on my behalf. Like, if we have burgeoning careers, that's I don't want to waste it trying to answer and get a question like that answered.
I'll tweet at him later.
Sure, go right ahead. Oh man, but I'll tell you the movie that got Gareth Edwards the job for Godzilla Monsters. Have you ever seen that one?
um, it's like sounds familiar. I don't know. I've seen a lot of movies. Let's see, monsters. Looking it up. Looking it up. 2010
Yeah, she's on the
IMDb.
IMDb right now. That's exactly what I thought. I mean,
6 years after Earth has suffered an alien invasion, a cynical journalist agrees to escort a shaken American tourist through an infected zone in Mexico to the safety of the U.S. border. It sort of looks familiar.
you got to check it out. It's actually, I mean, Gareth Edwards, God bless him. He was like, he wrote the movie, he directed it, and he did the visual effects. I'm like, it's actually a good, lean and efficient, quick, like less than 90 minutes, and really kind of, immersive kind of an experience. You're following these two characters. It's not, again, it's not surprising that he ended up doing Godzilla for this reason. He takes these two characters, as you describe in the log line, and sets it among this, this dangerous area in Mexico as they're trying to get back across. And it doesn't end tragically. In fact, if anything, it has a really beautiful ending where, the title characters that are kind of scary are trying to do the same thing our main human characters are doing. He actually got me to care about the main human characters in that movie. Did a great job with it, I thought. And I'm like, if only they had done this with Transformers. So it's like, and since then, Gareth Edwards has been, peripherally involved with Star Wars, obviously. But I'd love to see him continue, doing something else. I don't know what he's working on. His next movie is supposed to open in 2023 called True Love. We'll see what that's all about. And you folks stay tuned to IMDb, and we'll certainly check out his screenplay when that comes along next year. Assuming that, we're interested in it, we'll see. But
hey, we're always, let's see. Actually, it's not. Oh, that's visual effects. 1 second. Is he writing it? Is he directing it? Oh, True Love, post-production.
Yeah, he's just directing. I don't know if he wrote it.
Plot details are under wraps. It's a drama, romance, sci-fi. Oh, hey. I'm already sold.
There you go. Because the drama got you, right?
Oh, okay. Wow, look at this cast. Well, this is going to be super interesting. Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Allison Janney.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who are
John David Washington's in this. Dude, he should be making more movies anyway. I mean, he was great in Tenet.
Oh, man. This is a very interesting cast.
Yeah, and look at some of these names. Character names. American Soldier, Soldier at Temple, Female Simulant. Simulant. What's a simulant? Spaceport Technician, Protester, Tank Tech. The plot sickens.
Yeah, right. I mean, we can write just off this.
Oh man, we'll go a million different directions, but it'll be really cool to see what he does with it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So we'll have to see what that. But that's a future state kind of a movie. Speaking of, okay, so Top Gun Maverick, I don't know if you felt like it kicked off the summer movie season. What little one we have, because that's one of the last holdovers from the delayed COVID movies, right? And earlier this year we got the Batman. So is there anything else this summer you're looking forward to? I mean, whether we're talking about just for fun or like for something that stimulates you from a screenwriting perspective.
I definitely want to go see Nope. I love Jordan Peele. I think he's an amazing storyteller. And I don't like scary movies. And I'm really interested because in the latest trailer, they actually show alien ships.
Okay.
So
I have a problem with the title of that movie, though, because you look at the trailer and I could just see someone cheeky in the audience going, "Am I going to see this?" Answers in the title.
Oh, that's sad.
It is sad. I mean, it's not. It isn't very open-minded, but actually, I think somebody actually said that when because they ran that trailer before Top Gun Maverick when we went and saw it. But right after that, there was another one title movie called Smile. So we went from Nope to Smile. If they'd gone in the reverse direction, that would have been funnier. It's like Smile, Nope.
Let's see what else. I definitely am gonna go see. I mean, this just shows you where my brain is right now. I'm gonna go see Buzz Lightyear. I'm gonna go see Minions.
Okay.
I just saw Jurassic World. What are the other?
Jurassic World Dominion?
Yeah.
How was it?
I thought it was awesome.
Okay, all right. You're the only person I know that has seen it and has said that. Because I have, everyone else hasn't seen it yet. So, and
I mean, was it like the best Jurassic movie ever? No, but it was thoroughly enjoyable. I felt like they wrapped up all the storylines. I mean, knowing the history of dinosaurs and actually having dug for fossils in my lifetime.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I actually have some dinosaur bones that I found. I'm super excited that they gave the dinosaurs a more realistic look. Yeah, very, very cool.
I go back to the original because I'm a huge Michael Crichton fan. In fact, I read that book before the movie. I finished reading it roughly about 4 months before the movie opened because I knew that a movie was coming and it was Spielberg directed. You're going to have a beautiful music by John Williams in it that are awe-inspiring, that match the visuals so well, but that's John Williams, so what are you going to do, right?
Right. You right.
Kind of understood. And so what's interesting about Michael Crichton's books is this guy obviously was next level. I'd never read a book where there was a bibliography and footnotes for a piece of fiction. I was like, he brings the science fact into science fiction by having all these cited sources for all the research, for genetic research at the time. I'm like, wow. I mean, that was like next level for me on that writing. I'm like, dude, I am never going to be that kind of writer. I don't know that I would ever be that kind of writer. I still don't believe I could be that kind of writer. I mean, but you never know. But I'm curious as to that because I didn't like The Lost World. I think the book was 10 times better. But they had the book and the screenplay, and they went down the same path and then wildly diverged away from each other in terms of how both turned out. And then Jurassic Park 3 was like the apology, but it wasn't that good. It was better than The Lost World, but it wasn't that good. But Jurassic World was hella entertaining because it was the natural evolution of, what was set up in Jurassic Park. I thought that was a much better sequel. And I haven't seen Fallen Kingdom, and I would like to see it before I see Dominion.
Yeah.
So I am like somewhat interested in it. It's not been my top movie to go. The next one I'm most excited to see, I will see Thor: Love and Thunder because
love it. Yeah,
I'm into the Marvel thing too. But Bullet Train. Have you seen the trailer for Bullet Train?
Yeah. I want to see it because the fight choreography looks really cool. I'm more interested in seeing Elvis and Black Phone.
You know what? I'm not so sure I'm going to go for Black Phone, and Elvis is going to be interesting for a number of reasons. One, my mom is a huge Elvis fan. I don't know if she's going to want to see it, and it'll be interesting to see a different take on it. I'd heard all the time about Tom Hanks playing, Colonel Parker,
right,
and how he's almost played up as a villain in the story. And so I'll be curious to see how that turns out, but I'm not excited to go to a theater to see that one.
Can we both agree on Super Pets?
Oh, League of Super Pets? Are you actually going to go see that in the movie theater?
Of course I am. Okay.
I will get behind that one for my son's sake and the fact that I'm a diehard DC Comics fan. But honestly, by comparison, I am excited to see Black Adam, although the other cynical side of me says, oh man, they are really trying to tap into the whole Marvel thing with everything I saw in that trailer.
Yeah. But they even mirrored a scene from Iron Man.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my thing is though, I've been waiting for years to see characters like Hawkman and Doctor Fate on the big screen, and it's perfect casting to have Pierce Brosnan play Doctor Fate. So the problem is it's just going to suffer by comparison, I think. But we'll see. It's opening at a good time in the year, October 21st. We'll see what happens.
I don't know
But
if you can consider that a summer blockbuster, but
well, when it's too far out. I mean, League of Super Pets gets the best chance, but originally Black Adam was going to open this summer until they started stretching. They moved all the dates for the DC movies out.
they were like, "Oh shit, we don't have enough movies made."
It may be a fact of that, but I think a lot of that comes from and again, this goes back to paying attention to the business end of Hollywood. Warner Brothers and Discovery merging to form Warner Brothers Discovery now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're cleaning house over at the DC Films branch. So some things that were going to be planned and happen are getting killed left and right. Projects that were in development are no longer happening.
Maybe that is a good thing. Maybe we'll get better DC movies.
One would hope, but I'll say that if they're going to right the ship, they've been looking for a someone like a Kevin Feige to shepherd things.
There was only one.
Yeah, don't try to do it like Kevin Feige. What you really need to do is just finish out what you've got and realize the lightning in the bottle that you have with these characters, but recognize that you don't have to always go back to the well and have a Batman or Superman movie. Aquaman made great money at the box office, and we'll see how it turns out. My suspicion is some of it had to do with how things were handled in the wake of Justice League and the recent issues external to the film, but important because of all the PR that could happen, as a result of it. Ezra Miller, since he's in The Flash, being arrested twice in Hawaii, and then the recent Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial and how that might affect Aquaman. These things could have an effect on the release and the PR for these movies.
Mm-hmm.
By the time Aquaman opens, I don't know that anybody's really going to be thinking as much about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, regardless of where you land on the way that turned out. And Ezra Miller, maybe he'll won't have behaved any way that he might. Hopefully he doesn't get any more trouble.
Right.
Those are people's lives. They're external to the films. They do their job as actors and entertain, execute from what the script is. I don't think I have any right to comment on the matter anyway about their personal lives, but whatever they do, some people do feel that way, and it is going to affect the film, since we're in an industry that is very concerned about, or not in no, we're not in the industry, but the point is that it has an effect. It can have a negative effect on these films, and that's something DC needs right now.
Yeah, it would be nice to see someone else with fresh eyes take a look at those stories.
Yes, absolutely. Right now, I think the biggest thing that's being cleaned out from Warner Brothers Discovery and what they're doing with DC, J.J. Abrams was going to be tied to a number of DC projects, but nothing's been turned in.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that's going to lead. I always wanted to see J.J. Abrams take on Superman. Apparently, he pitched one before Zack Snyder got the gig, and I'm like, would have been interesting to see how that turned out. But but I'm with you. I'm like, let's get some different people. I really like they had guys that were, James Wan and Eddie Machete. These guys were making horror movies, and now they're making superhero movies, and they have fresh takes on the characters, and they're not the same characters as everybody else. So if we're going to go back to the well of a superhero movie, give us something new, and give us something that isn't, you can't compare it to a Marvel movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Which is going to be tough as hell. Because unfortunately, everything's going to suffer by comparison until we really do come up with something reinventive. Like, let's reinvent archetype stories or genres, but we're still going back to the well to an earlier point you made.
Yeah, and it's going to be that way for a very long time.
Yeah, but may they always be somewhat entertaining, like Top Gun Maverick at least somehow turned out to be.
I see what you did there. Just bringing it back after an hour to our
Trying
original topic.
trying to consider. Well, I have to make up for all the rambling I did in this particular episode. So, on that note, do we have any words of wisdom of any kind that we want to share for this particular episode?
I have no words of wisdom. I am about halfway through my dissertation for my doctorate, so.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all,
Yeah.
congratulations on that. I think the words of wisdom, that we could probably harken back to is, every single screenwriter is going to say the same one. It's just right.
Mm-hmm.
A single word of wisdom right there.
Yeah, I my TV show is changing every day, but I'm trying to include the world in which we live in. So,
Oh, that's got to be tough, though.
yeah.
Especially
Well,
when
it's not sunshine and flowers, but it's pretty cool. I don't know. We'll see what happens with it.
right. That's not what you're writing for your dissertation, though, right?
No, my dissertation is on the history of the hero.
Oh, nice. So you're definitely channeling some Joseph Campbell there, right?
Yep, of course.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
and it goes all the way from dinosaurs. I don't want to give away too much of my dissertation, but it goes all the way from dinosaurs all the way up into female heroes and anti-heroes. Not female anti-heroes, but anti-heroes.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, is there room in there for 5 more writers?
Yeah, you want to take a couple of chapters? Sure. Do the 60s and 70s.
Oh, and I can do the 80s and maybe half of the 90s there for you, but 60s and 70s, I'm not sure I'm, because the 70s were all, was all about the anti-hero, right? Your Dirty Harry types.
Yep.
So if you want to have some fun with that, sure. I mean, we haven't had a good female anti-hero yet, I think.
No, I think Tomb Raider was a little bit of it, but not particularly. I don't think we're ready to see women in that light just yet.
Well, and we don't want to paint it. I mean, we haven't had enough of them in a positive light, cinematically speaking. We're still making movies about Marilyn Monroe these days and painting her out to be, trying to paint her out to be as three-dimensional as possible, as opposed to the one-dimensional version that a lot of stories about her have been.
Right.
So just as one example, looking at historical figures, but to a lot of people, she's a particular hero, considering what she had to face. Going even into fictional female heroes, I mean, one could argue that there are Amazonian characters, Amazon women, who, hearkening to the DC Comics Wonder Woman characters. There's a few of those that are would be argued as anti-hero. And I don't know if you can make that argument, but there's some that are around. They're just not at the forefront.
Right. But
for good reason, because we need stronger stories with that kind of stuff anyway.
Sure do.
With really respectful, at the forefront, positive female characters. Disney's leading the way with that, right?
Sure.
Unless you believe cancel culture and how they're saying there's not enough man stories.
Oh my gosh.
So it's okay. You guys just be cool, chill out. The next James Bond movie's around the corner in about 6 years. Come on.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole topic we can talk about.
Oh yeah, and maybe that should be maybe we should make that one of the next ones, because and I was talking about this earlier with Top Gun Maverick. Not a lot of female characters there.
No.
But on that note, how should we close this out this evening?
Well, I would say always I'm looking for our banners. There you go. Do it this one.
Yeah.
That's how we'll do it.
That works. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. And if you like being old school about it, you can always email us. I think.
Yes.
With telling the show. Certainly on LinkedIn, you can find us there as well.
Yep. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
We're all over.
We're all over. Yes. No TikTok though.
And I don't think we're doing Snapchat either that I'm aware of.
No. There's some new ones that I've heard of. I have no idea what they are.
Oh God, yeah, I know, like Truth Social or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
I don't know that we should be on there though.
Nope.
Just saying.
Keep it real.
Right. So yeah, but if you have ideas for topics, folks, and if you have reactions to our shows, please, hit us up on all of those particular social media avenues. We'd love to hear from you. Send us some log lines, because one of our next episodes, we probably will try to do another log line Thunderdome.
Yes.
And I know I'm about to be bruised and battered by one of the better jobs that I know Denise will do.
Just one better job.
I only won one in the entirety of the time we've been doing that. So I mean,
what's really funny about that is, like, whenever we had to do log lines in school, everybody hated mine.
Really?
Like my log lines never got accepted, and I think it's hilarious. Maybe all of that negative response, actually, I learned something from.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I honestly, I think I came to log lines more. I think I've refined my understanding of them through my experience here. Yeah,
you definitely have to practice.
It's like anything else. Like with screenwriting itself, you have to, each of these phases, you get better at it the more you do. I don't believe in the idea of having someone tell you, because that sentence was disaster. I actually had an instructor tell me that once on a query letter thing. I'm like, okay, fine, you can say it's disaster, but I think that's over opinionated.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, you're gonna have to deal with those attitudes too. So that's
yes, you are.
You have to practice. So
peace be with you.
Namaste in bed.
Namaste. But keep your eyes, not one eye, but both eyes open, and see when we have some new guests coming in and some new topics, and it's going to be great.
Absolutely. We got one coming up here very soon. Really talented lady, and we had a great conversation with her. And that's the only sneak peek I'm going to give, because you're going to have a great time with that one.
Yes.
So we hope to hear from you guys again here soon, and we'll see you next time.
Adios, amigos.